So Charlie, today we're going to be looking at the Baron Pro. What do you want to say about it before we get started? How's been your experience in these last few weeks playing with this plane?
It's a fun plane if you're a techie like me on these things. You know, it bugs me if there's a button or lever that I don't know what it does. And of course, with this plane, you just got to suck it up. You can't know everything, at least in a short time. So I've learned as much as I could, but there's still going to be some things we don't know. But I love it. I love this plane. I love Black Square products in general. So.
Right. They make great quality products, and they're worth diving deeper into. Now, there is also, there was already a Baron in the sim. I don't know, and this is the thing, you guys, I've always had the Aviator Edition, so I don't know which version has every plane. But I'm going to presume it's probably in most versions, because the Baron is one of those legendary stock planes that we've been flying in every sim version since the start.
The deluxe version.
Deluxe or higher.
Deluxe or higher, okay. And that's the stock one, you guys.
Yeah, because the easy way to remember it is when you wanted to do the advanced lesson, you wanted to use the Baron. And we had to point out you can't use the Baron because not everybody has it.
Not everybody had it.
The only twin that everybody had was the 60.
That's why we did
DA60.
That's why we did the DA60 years ago in 2020. Yeah, so this is a twin, you guys, and we haven't done too many twins along the way. And this one's really well done, and Charlie's going to take us through it. So that's what we'll do, Charlie. We'll head over to the main screen, and we'll get going with this. And
whenever you're ready.
The rest of us are standing by to do some demos as Charlie needs. So we'll have our engines warmed up, and some of us will be in the air, ready to roll. So let's move over to our main screen, and first we'll just say that this is our Tuesday lesson night. Glad you guys have joined us. Let's rock and roll. And here we are on our main screen. So Charlie, you're up there at the top, and we're looking right now at my live screen, you guys. This is me sitting on the tarmac. I better get things ready to go and get this plane started up, because I've got to get up in the air and be ready when Charlie needs me. But this is what it looks like when it's on the ground, and you've got everything out, the generator on. You've got a couple of pipes on the bottom there. What are those for, Charlie?
Oh, you got your engine. You got your preheat there.
That's preheating, and that's what the propane cylinder's for, right? Oh yeah, there's a blower motor right there, a battery, and a propane cylinder, and these are going into the engine nacelles. I see. And that just keeps the engines warm. That's cool. And this all comes from the tablet. You can turn these on or off. Chocks are on too. Yeah, so I got some work to do. Covers and chocks and everything. So I'll work on that while we let Charlie continue on. And we'll move over to Charlie's screen here. I'm going to add it right nearby. And there we go. And there we go. Charlie, you can take it from here, and I'll comment. Andrew, Mike, and I will comment as we go along, as you need us.
Please do. And just a pre-warning, everybody, as Howard rightfully pointed out to me, I put too much detail and sometimes too small a print. So I may not cover every word in each slide, probably much to your relief, but you can always get it off the Ko-fi site. So the slide pack deck is already there, I think. So. As the usual disclaimer, neither Howard nor I are CFIs, but we are both licensed pilots. So, okay, the Baron Twin. So the Beechcraft by Textron Aviation in the sim, that's the one in the deluxe version. And Black Square has 3 versions of the Baron Twin, and we'll talk about all 3. Although I'm only going to demonstrate the regular version. I don't know what Mike or Howard are using, but we will see. So here's what we'll be talking about. A little bit of introduction to the Baron, a little bit of history, talk about the engines, the controls and mappings, a little bit on that, and one of the, I guess, warnings on that. We'll go through Howard's 7 steps to learning a new plane, do some hands-on demos, and then wrap up with some Q&A. So for the demos, Mike's going to be demonstrating the cold starting and flooded starting, and I'm going to demonstrate with a hot plane, the hot starting. Howard's going to do the hard part, demonstrate feathering. That's a little tricky on this plane. And I'll do some RNAV computer navigation, so not GPS, and just kind of one of the highlights that I like. And then just kind of fly around a bit landing and shutdown as time permits. So hopefully some of y'all can join us.
So Charlie, one of the things that a lot of people are confused about is when you say the word RNAV, a lot of people don't realize RNAV was around before GPS. And most people look at a chart and it says RNAV GPS, and they wonder why it says both. Right? And because RNAV has been around long before GPS was around, and this plane uses that original RNAV. So
Yep.
that's something that hopefully you're going to demo that, are you?
I will demo that. Yep.
Super,
Yep.
yeah.
This plane, the Black Square Bonanza has it, and actually the A2A Piper Aerostar 600 also has RNAV, area navigation computer, that we didn't have time to demonstrate before. So we'll demonstrate that today. So in this slide, give a little bit of history, and I won't go over all of it, but hopefully you can see at the bottom kind of a family genealogy for the Beech Baron. This came from a nice thing I got off online, and I show at the end the references if you want to see where I got this from. But the Model 95 Travel Air was actually kind of a precursor of the Baron, and then the Baron 55, Model 55 came out, and that became then the B55. And I don't know much about the T42, so I'm not going to talk about it. But there was actually a Turbo Baron A56, which I think only, 84 of them, 82 of them were produced, so not many. But the Baron 55 was kind of the mainstay for a number of years, basically up through 1982. Something like just under 2,000 of those were built. And then the Baron 58 was a longer version of the B55, and actually they took the Bonanza kind of cabin and body and put the engines on it, and they made the Baron 58 more or less. And that was produced until 2004. And about that time, then they came out with the G58, which is basically the same thing, the Baron, but with the glass cockpit, the G1000 glass cockpit. And there were also a couple of variants, the 58P and the 58TC. Both of these have turbocharged engines. And the P, of course, is pressurized version. The TC is just a plain turbocharged version. And we'll go into the engines in a minute. But that's basically kind of the history. This aircraft. What I like to get from this is, why does the 58 have a more newer, more modern, actually slightly bigger engine than the 58TC and 58P? Well, the reason is because these were older planes than the more modern 58 ones. So, okay, so here's basically, one thing I didn't mention. These are the planes that are available in the sim in 2020 or 2024. So the 58TC, the 58P, and the 58 are available from Black Square. The Baron G58 is in the sim as a deluxe version. And there's actually a B55 out now. Carenado put one out, I guess, about 4 months ago. You can get that as separate payware, which we won't be talking about that tonight. So here I show the 4. So the one that's in the deluxe upgrade version of MSFS 2020 or 2024, and all the details there. It's got the same engine as the 58 Pro, which is the IO 550C. So that's fuel injected. This one comes with the glass cockpit G1000. Again, we won't be doing much with it tonight. There's your max cruise, ceiling, all that. And I showed that for all of them. One thing you'll notice over here on the 58 Professional, it says cruise. Well, I guess that's actually right, cruise speed. But if you look in the sim at this same page for the G58, it gives a lower number. So I'm not sure. All these numbers may not be consistent with the basis for them. But you'll notice these also are higher than what you see as the cruising speed, maximum cruising speed for these airplanes, because, or at least on the airspeed indicator, because these are true airspeeds at altitude as opposed to indicated airspeeds. So that's one thing to be aware of.
But I would also say, Charlie, if I can jump in, I would mention those numbers you see when you're looking at the plane to pick it. I never trust those numbers. They've been off on a lot of planes.
Yep.
So that's sort of the marketplace numbers, if you want to start calling it that or labeling it that. But as you and I both know, we looked in the POH and we saw that the numbers agree with Black Square's numbers.
Yep.
It's not that marketplace number list, yeah.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so here's the 550C engine. So yeah, 300 horsepower, 6-cylinder, air-cooled, certified in 83, still produced, a set in 2019. I think maybe beyond that as well. And of course, it's also in the Bonanza and in several Cessnas, Cirrus SR22. So a number of places it's still produced. Then you go to the turbocharged version, and this is now a 520 instead of a 550. So I think as far as I know, the 520 means 520 cubic inches as opposed to the 550's 550 cubic inches. So it's actually a little bit smaller displacement, but more powerful because of the turbocharger. So, and again, there's also a version of this in the Bonanza, which we would have seen a couple weeks ago, and then several different Cessnas and other planes. And this isn't a very good picture, but I couldn't find very many good pictures of the 520. But this actually is a picture from a Baron, a turbocharged Baron. So, all right. So controls mapping, pretty straightforward. Your alpha or your yoke, in this case alpha yoke. At least minimum your ailerons in your elevator, of course, and then your rudder pedals, minimum there, your brakes and your rudder axis. You can do the 3 axes. So for each engine, your prop, your throttle, your mixture. You also need, unfortunately, you can't really map very well to do the feathering, and Howard's going to talk about that a little bit. There's ways you can map it, but it doesn't work. So you have to actually go into the plane and manually pull the prop levers back to get them into feather mode. And even then, the conditions have to be right to make it work. But Howard had the difficult job of doing the toughest demo today. So,
and I loved it. That. It was fun.
Frustrating at times.
That's why we do this. It's the challenge of it all, right?
That's right. So, learning a new airplane, your 7 steps. You all have seen. Most of you all have seen this before. Attain the POH, learn the vital speeds, learn the engine handling, and the nice thing about this plane is this is a little bit tricky because it is a study level airplane, and Nick, the developer, has put a lot into this and a lot of details in. Get a checklist. We'll talk about some special features and the avionics, do a little cockpit orientation, then we'll take it for a spin and do some demos. Checklist and the POH. Nick provides such great detail with his planes. You don't really need to go in and get the actual POH or make your own checklist. He's got all that covered. In the case of the checklist, it's not only in the manual, it's also live in the airplane in the EFB, and it works great. So, okay, again, as POH, you don't need to get your own. I did look in some. There were a couple of discrepancies with the manual, and I'll point a couple of those out. But it is an excellent manual. I think it's, 165 pages. And he goes into detail on some of the avionics stuff that I like. So I love his manual. And if you want even more detail, he gives links for some of the actual manuals, like the EDM 760, the engine monitor. You can actually go get the manufacturer's manual for that and read through that if you want more details. So I love the way he gives you all the detail and even resources if you want more. But it is good to study this manual if you got a chance. Okay, V-speeds. So a lot of V-speeds. Let me just point out a couple critical things. You got this red line. Well, you have your normal, arcs here. You got the white arc, you got the green arc, you got the orange arc, and then you got the red line, the do not exceed, but you also have a red line here, and that's the minimum controllable speed with critical engine inoperative. And I think, Howard, you had asked me before, what is the critical engine? So I prepared for that question this time. In a twin, the critical engine is usually the left engine. And it basically, if both of your engines, the props rotate the same direction, that left engine will be your critical engine. And the reason is, if you may remember those that were on some of the stick and rudder lessons, planes have a tendency to have a lot of left yaw on takeoff, when you rotate, for various reasons, P factor and other reasons, but primarily left yaw. Well, if your left engine quits, you're going to get a lot of yaw from your right engine running only, and you add that to your other reasons for yaw, you're going to get a lot more left yaw than if your right engine quits and your left engine's still running. So that's why they call that the critical engine. Usually the left engine is the critical engine. Now it's still, you can still control it, but might need a little bit higher speed. And so that's why they give you this, with the critical engine inoperative. So you get the red line for that. The blue line would be the best single engine. Let's see. Okay, that's the best single engine climb rate.
BY, yeah.
So normal would be your best. Well, okay, this is a mistake here. VYSE. I got two VYSEs. I got three VYSEs. Okay, this is this is VXSE. The first VYSE is the actual one at 100. This is just supposed to be your VUI with both engines, 110. I made a mistake here, Mike pointed out, and I fixed part of it, but not all of it. So 110 is your normal best rate of climb. Your VYSE is at 100 is your best rate of climb on a single engine. Best angle of climb, 95. And of course, your clean stall speed is the end of the green arc, so that's 84. Your rotate, 81. So pretty much the rest is pretty much standard. Now on flaps, there's a little triangle here, which is useful. So that's your maximum flap approach speed. So that's your first notch of flaps. You can put that on once you get down below 152. Same with your landing gear. You can put that down once you get down below 152. So these planes are nice. You don't have to slow down that much in order to start bringing your flaps in your landing gear. But of course, for full flaps, you need to be down in the white arc range, as with other planes. Maneuvering speed, 156. Maximum structural cruise speed. And that's what, that's what I was trying to show before is that 195 is maximum cruise. And then do not exceed 223. So now that's the regular Baron, not the turbocharged. So now if we go to the turbocharged, you got similar numbers, but a little bit higher. So red line is now 235. You're now in maximum gear and flap extension speed is 177, so quite a bit higher than the regular Baron. Some of the lower numbers, so your minimum controllable without critical engine, 81, that's actually a little bit lower. And that's what I saw in the manual too, so in the POH. These other numbers, you got your red line, I mentioned the blue line, so best single engine climb is 115. And then your best rate of climb, 115. In this case, they're the same. And then, so I won't go over all of these, but you get a pretty good, guess they're on your glide speed, 122. So that's an important number to remember when, if you have engine outages.
Yeah, both engine outages, yeah.
Yep. Okay, engine handling. So these are the engine gauges, and we'll show when we go through the cockpit familiarity where they all sit. But you basically have 5 engine gauges for each engine, kind of sitting, in a column, right? The 2 engines next to each other. Starting at the top, you have your manifold pressure, and I show 2 versions here. So you got the regular one, and I mislabeled these. The right one is the turbocharged one. The left one is the regular one. And you can tell the turbocharged one because the red line for manifold pressure is 39.5 inches, which is higher than atmospheric of 29.92. So that has to be the turbocharged one. Over here, you've got the regular one, which maximum manifold pressure is 29, or 29.5. Then you've got RPM, same gauge for both under that. Then you've got fuel flow under that. And again, somehow I got the turbocharged and the regular mixed up. Turbocharged over here where you can get higher fuel flows. On the left, you have your regular version. And then the bottom 2 gauges in the column will be your temperatures. So cylinder head temperature and exhaust gas temperature, and then your oil temperature and your oil pressure. And you can see the ranges, the green ranges, the red line on all of these. So, your maximum engine speed, 2,700 RPM. I won't go over every one. You can read about in the manual. You can see the red lines and the gauges. But you do need to watch out for these because, like all of Black Square's planes, you can see these for very long. You'll do damage to the engines. Oil pressure range 30 to 100. So you'll definitely want to watch on startup. Watch that oil pressure. Make sure it comes up. And mention the maximum manifold pressure. For the regular, 29.6 inches, 39.5 for the turbocharged version. And then turbocharger limitations. So critical altitude, which varies with with atmospheric conditions is 20,000 feet. Now, the critical altitude, so for a turbocharged plane, basically you can keep your throttle full open. You'll maintain that maximum manifold pressure up to the critical altitude. So if you're doing, climb, your initial climb, keep it going, keep your throttle full open. You don't need to lean because you're getting all that air coming in from your turbocharger. You get that manifold pressure up at max, and it works fine. But then you get to the critical altitude, then your manifold pressure will start to decrease. You'll have to start leaning until you get to cruise, and then set it up for cruise. Okay, one thing that they pointed out, and I've experienced this a little bit, but it may be hard to duplicate, especially if you have recently started up your plane and your oil's not maybe fully hot yet. It tends to move a little bit slower where it's controlling certain things like your prop pitch and things of that sort. One of the things that it controls is called the wastegate. And I'm not an engine expert, but I've read about this. So this has an automatic wastegate, and that basically controls, and I don't know if, I guess I have a picture of it, maybe in one of the, you can see this in the tablet, the engine analyzers. The wastegate basically controls how much exhaust goes through the turbocharger versus just gets exhausted directly. And if it doesn't, as you increase your throttle, what it will do is we'll direct more of the exhaust gas through the turbocharger to get you that higher pressure in your manifold. And if you do it too fast at the end, you can actually overboost the engine slightly. So I've seen that in my case where you actually can get up here to about maybe 41, 42, even 43. So what they recommend is that as you're increasing your throttle and take off with the turbocharged version, just kind of take it easy that last quarter of range of your throttle so you don't overboost. Keep an eye on your manifold pressure when you're doing that. Again, this is a nice, beautiful, detailed, well-modeled system, so you get all those considerations. So under engine handling, other operating limitations, so you don't want to engage the starter for more than 30 seconds in any 4-minute period. It will overheat. Mike could tell you some experiences with, he had to watch his starter temperature when he was playing with the starting demos. Also, you don't want to cool your cylinders too fast, and you can see that you'll get warnings in the engine monitor, which I'm showing here, the EDM 760 engine monitor. This is really a nice piece of equipment. It shows a lot of information about your engine in a small space. We're not going to dwell on it too much here, but just in a nutshell, what this is showing is for left engine and the right engine, it shows all your 6 cylinders. These bars up here shows the exhaust gas temperature as a percent of maximum. So up here would be your maximum. Down here, the lowest would be half of your maximum temperature. So you can kind of see where all your cylinders are at a glance. Where you have blank spots here, that's your cylinder head temperature. And that's on this scale. It's not a percent, it's the actual scale in degrees Fahrenheit. So in this case, cylinder 4 here, you read across, it's about 425 degrees Fahrenheit, your cylinder head temperature. So you can read them all that way. And then this last column that's labeled T, I guess this must be a turbocharged engine. So the top line is up to your maximum turbine inlet temperature. So we're below that. That's good. And then this blank would be your oil temperature, again, as a percent of the limit. So that's kind of a nice thing. So you can see, again, here's a summary of what it shows you. Oil temperature, shock cooling rate is what you've got to watch out for when you start your descent. And it will show you the shock cooling, the cooling rate. So you want to be careful. I think keep it under 33 degrees C per minute. Okay. Other engine handling. So starting. So this is some of the tricky stuff. This one you should not start cold without preheating. So I don't remember the number. Engines. Okay, so engines should be preheated. There you go. When your ambient temperature is below freezing. So if you're below freezing, you really should use the preheat. If you have a cold engine, so cold engine would just be your normal starting. When you're less than 100 degrees above the ambient temperature in the engine, then you just do a normal prime with fuel pump, throttle and mixture full forward for 2 or 3 seconds, then turn your fuel pump off, and then you're ready to start. Be careful you don't pump too long or you can flood the engine. And in the case of a hot engine, you can get vapor lock. So if you've just shut down after a flight and you try and start up again, say 5 or 10 minutes after, up to maybe an hour or so, where it's had a chance to cool off, your fuel and your fuel lines, your fuel injection lines, will actually vaporize and cause a vapor lock. So there's ways to do that. You can circulate fuel through the fuel injectors. Basically, keep your throttle and mixture closed and just run your fuel pump for 20 seconds. See if it cools down. Try it again. If it doesn't start, then repeat the process. And that seems to work fairly well. I've tried that. And then flooded engine, if you over prime it, for example, you have too much fuel in, it won't start. So you've got to do some other things, maybe advance the throttle to get more air in there. But be careful, there's a chance of fire or backfire with severe flooding. So got to be careful about that. And Mike will talk about that a little more. One nice thing about this plane, well, one of many, is the tablet with the engine analyzers. You can actually look and see if it's not starting. You can actually look at the tablet and look at the condition of the engine. It will tell you. It won't tell you. You can deduce why it's not starting. If your cylinders are full of fuel, denoted by blue, well, you know I'm flooded. If you don't have any blue color in the fuel lines up to the fuel injectors, well, you know you probably have vapor lock. So it's kind of nice from that standpoint. It can help you learn, what symptoms you need to look for these various conditions. So for taxi and takeoff, pretty much typical. You want to lean for taxi to prevent spark plug fouling. Takeoff, you have full rich, maximum RPM, full throttle. Your normal engine, that should be 29.6 inches, 2,700 RPM. Turbocharged engine, 39.5. Again, I mentioned when you're taking off with the turbocharged engine, you're applying takeoff power. That last quarter range of your throttle, move it a little bit slower while you're monitoring your manifold pressure to avoid the overboost due to slow operation of the wastegate. And then normal engine, you want to lean during climb to maintain your optimal mixture. Turbocharged engine, you don't have to worry about leaning up until the critical altitude. So here I show, that initial takeoff. In this case, the normal engine, you're at 29 just above 29 here, and about 2,700 RPM. And then over on the turbocharged, again, you're up at 39.5. So. And then engine handling during cruise. So he's got nice tables. I mean, you could look in the various POHs, in real life POHs, and get tables, in some cases graphs and stuff. But he's got them all set up nice in the manual. I've showed one table, 75% maximum continuous power for both the normally aspirated 58 and the turbocharged. And you can kind of see based on sea level up to 20,000 feet what your manifold pressure could be for, in this case, 75% power, 2,500 RPM, your fuel flow, true airspeed and whatnot. So it's really nice that he's got this. Of course, you'll want to, these assume that you've leaned rich of peak. So, and I recommend, and I guess most manufacturers recommend, rich of peak to better protect the engine, but you can run lean of peak to get better economy if you need to. Of course, you'd want to run probably less power also if you want better economy. So, checklist. So again, the checklist in the manual, the InSim checklist, all very good, very useful. So stick with those. I'm sure you can find, maybe you'll find others, make your own if you want, if there's particular things that you want to do differently. But I've found these to be quite useful, and really all you need. Okay, we've gone through that pretty fast. Which gives us more time to fly, which is fine. One thing I do like about this airplane is all the special features and the detail that he's put in. So the G58, which is not default, but the deluxe version that comes with the sim, has, of course, the glass cockpit, the G1000. This one differs from that in many ways, of course, starting with the analog instrumentation. So you can see your engine gauges here, these two columns of engine gauges, your 6-pack, and we'll look at this a little bit more later. You have various choices of avionics shown here with the 750 GTN 750 and GTN 650. But also you've got fully modeled complex systems. You've got the tablet interface we've talked about, which includes engine analyzer, electrical system, a live schematic of the electrical system, the cabin environmental system. These are all handy, not necessarily for when you're flying, but when you're learning the airplane, it's like, okay, what does this lever do? Well, you can read the manual, you can read the POH, and it's not always clear, but when you see a picture of it and you move the lever and you can actually see the thing moving on the tablet, you say, oh, that's what that does. So it really helps understand how the various things work. I mentioned the system, the engine simulation with the vapor lock, also plug fouling, flooding, backfires. Really cool. That's got all that. Your radios, so your avionics configurations, I guess 12 different combinations. I've not tried all of them, but a lot of them. Failures, like the other black square planes in the past, failures are included if you want to do them. You can turn that off if you don't want to do them. So that's kind of a nice feature. Environmental control systems, so air conditioning, heating. Yeah, you really can get into that and do it exactly like the real plane. So it's kind of cool. The feathering system, so including feathering locking pins and other non-feathering accumulator, which Howard will demonstrate and talk about a little bit. It's a pretty detailed system. And then your voltage-based light dimming. So if your engines are running slow and you're not getting power from your alternators, for example, you'll see at night the lights dim. So just like in a real case, it's kind of cool the way he's done that. Your gyroscope physics simulations, so how the gyroscope spin up and the time they take to spin up and slow down and behave, all that's kind of in there. And you hear the sounds too. You turn this thing off and you'll hear the gyro spinning down for quite a while. And then instrument needle stiction and friction. So what is stiction, you ask? Well, if you turn the avionics on without the engine running, some of the things will come alive. I think the main attitude indicator will not, because that's a vacuum controlled thing, but the backup attitude indicator will, because it's electric. But many of the other ones will. You actually, it's got a feature. If you take your mouse and click right on the gauge, like you're tapping on it with your finger, you'll see the needle moves. It's so pretty cool. When it just comes live, it may get stuck if there's not some kind of vibration going on. So again, and there's many more things that we didn't even list here. So, but one quote I like from the manual: the piston engine simulation of this aircraft is significantly more complex than most employed in flight simulators. So don't expect a carefree, easy operation requiring little expert knowledge that's sufficient for the normal default aircraft in the simulator. So I really love this airplane for its complexity and the systems he's modeled. Special features, many of these are basically the same as we saw in the Bonanza Pro that Howard taught on a couple weeks or 3 weeks ago, whenever that was. So I won't go over all of them, but and of course, a lot of them, it's got a nice because they have all the attitudes indicator and all that, so I won't go over all those, but it does have a couple of neat things. The true airspeed indicator I'll talk about a little bit. The radio magnetic indicator is a nice thing where it shows both your NAV1 VORs, if it's tuned in, the direction that is, as well as your ADF, but you don't have to adjust the compass face. It's locked into your automatic compass, so it's already showing your heading. It's got a radar altimeter, which is really handy, and of course your engine monitor. We talked about that a little bit. The weather radar, same thing as in the Bonanza. Howard talked about that a couple weeks ago, and various other things. We also will talk about this KNS-81 RNAV navigation system. So Howard alluded to that. You actually can do area navigation without a GPS, and we'll talk about that. Or you could use it as a NAV3 radio. That's another option. And then your GPS comm nav options, you have several different ones and different combinations. I think you could even have, for example, a GTN 750 with a GNS 430 if you want as a secondary, or have a 750 as your second COM 2 and have a regular radio as COM 1, I believe. So yeah, lots of different combinations. And yeah, I guess that's all I need to talk about on this one. So lots of cool special features. So the true airspeed indicator I mentioned, and many of you all may be already aware of this, but not a lot of planes have this. And I always wondered, well, how does this thing work? So kind of figured it out or read about it. And, it's pretty straightforward. All you have to do is dial in, so first of all, let me back up a second. So normally you show your indicated airspeed. The higher altitude you're at, the more your indicated airspeed will differ from your true airspeed. And, usually you have to, I guess there's a E6B has the capability to calculate the true airspeed. And that's basically kind of how this works. You can also, do digital electronic tools to calculate that. And actually your, as I show down here, your GTN 750 actually will show true airspeed if you want. But this is kind of a nice simple thing. So all you do is you use the knob here, and what you do is you set the altitude. This is altitude in thousands, and then this is temperature in degrees C. So you set your altitude across from whatever your outside air temperature is at that point. And here I show the outside air temperature is 24 degrees Fahrenheit. And then what you can do is in this white window, you can read the actual true airspeed. Now, I'm showing this in the default mode here in this left picture. So we show at sea level 0 feet right here. And then it's showing this is degrees C. So there's 0, plus 10, plus 20, plus 30 degrees C. So the normal ISA, so standard atmospheric conditions, would be at sea level would be 15 degrees C. So I set that there, and you'll notice the indicated airspeed, which is the inner ring, and the true airspeed, which is on the white tape here, all line up perfectly, 140, 140, 160, and so on and so forth. So if you're at sea level and you're at 15 degrees C, well, then true airspeed and indicated airspeed are the same. But over here, I'm at 10,000 feet, and my outside air temperature is minus 4 degrees C, so I put 10,000 here right across from minus 4, and then I can read. You'll notice that my true airspeed here is way off from my indicated airspeed. So I'm showing indicated airspeed of about 153 maybe, but my true airspeed is 178 knots. And again, you confirm that with the GTN 750. Now, you wouldn't need to do all this if you have a GTN 750 showing your true airspeed, but you might not.
Yeah.
So,
and I'll throw to Charlie, if you are checking your GTN 750, make sure you look at the right number, because it does have true airspeed and ground speed.
True. Yep. And they can be different.
Yeah.
So one thing you notice, and this is kind of a cool thing, if you've never done it on the GTN 750, you can set up multiple map pages. And the map is the same, but it gives you different, your 4 data fields, you can change them. So I've got 3 pages set up here, each with a different set of data fields. So that's where I set this one with true airspeed and ground speed, which is kind of cool. Okay, moving on. Other special features. So I mentioned the various GPS options, and here this is in the tablet. You can pick what you want. Here I'm showing the selection of the 750 and the 650. There's also a KLN-90B, which is an older version with red LEDs version of a GPS. So it is GPS. It does not have the COM1 and nav, the COM and nav receivers in it. So you'll still have to have the regular receivers, but it's kind of a neat option. And I show that over here. Here's your KLN-90B. I have not learned this, so I'm not going to demonstrate it. Then here's your normal radios. This is your KX155B set up as COM1, NAV1, COM2, NAV2. Or you can do your 530, 430, and again, you get a choice of both or only one. And then your 750, 650. So a lot of nice options here to, whatever you want for your avionics. Pretty cool.
Yeah, you can adjust your avionics to how old you think your plane actually is.
And you can do it on the fly. You can do it while you're in the air if you want. Just be careful you're not in a critical phase of flight when you do that, because it does take a few seconds to switch over and get everything up and running again. Okay, I mentioned the area navigation. So this is the days before GPS. You had VORs, and you could navigate direct to a VOR if you wanted. But of course, you had to have a VOR, where you wanted to go, or nearby, and then go from there, figure a heading, and get to where you're going. With the KNS-81 RNAV computer, you can actually create yourself a waypoint wherever you want. The only requirement is your plane has to be within the service volume of that VOR DME station.
Yep.
If you can't receive the VOR, well, then it's not going to help you navigate.
Because it's got nothing to adjust to.
That's right. That's right.
It is pretty. It is a pretty neat thing, though.
It is, and you can also look at it as a third nav receiver. Instead of just having nav 1, nav 2, you actually can have a third nav receiver and go directly to a VOR if that's the way you want to use it. But it works with the DME readout and the HSI that you can use then to navigate to any point. But again, you must be the receiver must be within range of the VOR DME. You define waypoints using distance and radial from a VOR. So here I show in this diagram, which came right out of the manual, or a manual. So here's my VOR station. This is the waypoint I want to navigate to. Here's where my plane is, let's say. So all I need to do is for this waypoint, identify a VOR within actually the waypoint doesn't have to be close to the VOR station, but your plane has to be there to read it. So you don't want this to be too far away either. Otherwise you get close to this and you lose your station. But you just look at the radial to the waypoint from the station. So here we're on about the 80-degree radial. And then you look at the distance to the station and you put that in, and then you define that waypoint. And then when you're going, just tune into this, select the waypoint, and then it points you right to it, just as if this were a VOR itself. So in the DME, it will show you the distance from it. It will show you on the HSI. You can line up your heading just like with a VOR instrument, and it's pretty nice. You can also use this in a mode where you're just tracking to a VOR, not to a created waypoint, and that's just like, again, having a third nav radio. Now it has 4 different modes: VOR and VOR par. Par stands for parallel. So this is just using it as if you're using a regular tracking to a regular VOR with the VOR and the nav radio. And again, 10-degree full scale deflection, so it's angular course deviation to the VOR. 10-degree full scale deflection on your HSI. Course deviation indicator needle. In parallel mode, it will actually allow you to track the course deviation in nautical miles. So 5 nautical mile full scale deflection, so not angular, which is kind of nice, especially when you get closer to the VOR. With angular, it can get very sensitive. Now in an RNV mode, or RNV approach mode, now it uses the waypoint that you've defined. So now instead of tracking to the VOR that you've got tuned in, it will track to the waypoint that you've defined. And in approach mode, basically the difference between these two is just what the full scale deflection is: 5 nautical miles versus 1.25 nautical miles. So again, as you get closer, you may want to use approach mode to use better, finer control. And the various other things it works with. So here's what the navigation computer looks like, and we'll talk more about it in the next slide. Here's the DME. You need to have the DME set to, so there's nav 1, nav 2 off. I never have figured out what the hold is. I'm sure it's not that complicated, but I've not read about it. And then RNAV, instead of using nav 1 or nav 2, it uses the RNAV computer, whether it's in VOR mode, and we'll talk about that a little bit in a bit, or whether it's in RNAV mode. So on RNAV mode, it'll be tracking to the waypoint that you've defined. So it shows you your ground speed relative to that waypoint, your distance in nautical miles, and your time to that waypoint. Now, if you're using the autopilot with this thing, which you can do, there's a couple of stipulations. One is you don't want to have any GPSs in. I'm not sure if the one that doesn't have a comm or nav radio will work with it. I've not tried it, but you want to set this button to RNAV And of course, you also, whether you're using autopilot or not, if you're just navigating with it, you want to set your HSI source to RNAV instead of NAV1. So here's the, here you've got the navigation computer, and if I can get it to work right. So your waypoint number, that's just displaying the data, is shown here. So this is showing the data for a waypoint number. And if it's flashing, if it's solid, that means that's your active waypoint. If it's flashing, then it's not your active waypoint. Your mode that's currently, so here we're in RNAV mode. It also shows VOR and VOR parallel mode over here and RNAV approach mode down here. So whichever one's lit up, that's the mode that you're in. And then your waypoint data are these 3 points here, starting with your frequency. So this would be the VOR DME frequency that you've tuned in. This would be the radial. So the radial that your waypoint is on from that VOR. And this is the distance that your waypoint is from that VOR. So just put all those in, and we'll show you how to do that in a minute. This inner knob on the left will select different waypoints. So it's got 10 waypoints. You just rotate that up, and you can scroll through your 10 waypoints and all the data that's shown. The outer knob shows the mode selection. So if I want to change from RNAV to VOR, you would just turn that outer knob. The use button, you press that one, so you'll have a waypoint displayed. If you want to use that waypoint, make the active one, just press the use button, and then the number will stop flashing. It'll become solid, and that's what your computer's using then for navigation. The return button, if you're scrolling through your various waypoints and you want to go back to your active one, just press the return button. Then the radial button, so that will show you on the DME, it will display the aircraft radial on the DME, because normally it wouldn't show that. It will show just the distance and the time and the ground speed. The check button, if you press and hold that in, it will show the aircraft position on this screen relative to the VOR. So it'll show your distance and the radial relative to the VOR that you have turned in, that you have tuned in. And then the data button will cycle through these fields. So right now you see frequencies highlighted with the 2 arrows on either side. If you press the data button, it would go to the radial with the 2 arrows on either side. And whichever one's highlighted with those 2 arrows, that's what you can enter the data for. And you do that with these 2 knobs. The outer knob and the inner knob will give you the coarse and the finer numbers. So typically by 10s or by 1s, outer inner knob. If you need to do decimals, you just right click on that inner knob, or in actual life you'd pull it, but right click in the sim, and then you can do decimals if you need decimals. So that's how you enter the data, and we'll demonstrate that. So that brings us to cockpit orientation. I haven't been watching chat, so I guess you guys are no major questions.
Nope, not much going on at the moment.
Okay.
They're listening and they have pencil and paper.
Okay. Well, you can dispose of the pencil and paper. Just go to Howard's Ko-fi site and just pay $3.
Wow, that's a great plug. Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
You're just gonna have to come back on Thursday, Charlie, and answer all the questions. That's all.
That's it. Yeah. 'Cause there's a lot there. Yeah.
All right. So, cockpit orientation. So one thing that Oz reminded me to do is that if you have a program, like if you have Parallel 42's chase plane or something, that can change your views. So these are all the default views that we'll be showing that came with the plane originally. If you change them, then anything's fair game. But we'll go through these. So your normal view, just showing here, you get a good view of on front of you and your basic 6-pack and whatnot. Shift 1, or in 2020 it's actually Control 1. So this would be the instrument views. So you can see your engine instruments close up, your 6-pack. Here's the RMI, the radio magnetic indicator that I mentioned. So it will always show the actual heading along with your HSI, and the solid arrow shows your VOR1 or whatever nav1 is tuned to. If it's set here at 9 degrees, that means it's not receiving anything, I think. And then the hollow arrow is showing your ADF. So wherever if you've got something tuned in, an NDB tuned in on your ADF, then it'll show where that is. And of course, when it's pointing to 90 degrees, to the right, that means there's nothing tuned in. Your radar altimeters right here, very handy. Instrument air pressure, whatnot. So one thing we haven't talked about a lot is this has, and I don't remember what they call it, it's got an internal, behind the panel, compass, gyroscopic compass, that basically is self-correcting. So you won't have your normal precession on your gyros, on your, well, in this case, the HSI. So this should always read the right number unless there's some magnetic anomaly that's causing it to cause a problem. And if that's the case, you can turn it from slave to free, and then this will no longer be slave to that internal compass, and you can adjust it. And the way you adjust it, you notice it doesn't have, like in normal compasses, it would have a little knob to adjust the compass to match, or to adjust the gyro heading to match your compass. This doesn't have that. It's got your heading bug and your course selection, but doesn't have a way to adjust the gyroscopic direction indicator. But you can do that by putting it in free mode here, and then counterclockwise or clockwise move the switch one way or the other to adjust that if you need to. I kind of like not having to be able to adjust that, have it automatically always showing the right number. So that's one nice thing about these planes. The Bonanza had that too. Okay, shift 2 gives you over here to your avionics and your backup instruments for your copilot. And shift 3 down all your switches in front of the lower panel in front of the pilot. Shift 4, lower panel in front of the copilot. So flaps, prop amps. Prop amps is for your de-ice, prop de-ice. And your lighting, your panel lighting, which is always good to know that in the sim. If you happen to spawn in at night and you want to know what you're doing, know where those lights are. Shift 5 gives kind of a angle showing your throttle, prop, and mixture levers. Let's see, your fuel selectors, very straightforward. You got off, on, and then cross feed for both engines. Also shows your, in this case, aileron trim and your rudder trim here. And, well, your elevator trim's over here as well. Okay, this is showing left of the pilot's leg, so all your main circuit breakers for your main systems, as well as your hob meters. And this one's also important, cabin vent air. If you want heat or air conditioning, you need to make sure this is on to the right. This is one thing I haven't figured out in the tablet, the cabin schematic. I don't see what this does exactly, where this valve or whatever it is, what it moves.
I bet that's a vent. It's just a vent valve. You won't see it in a schematic.
Well,
Probably
he's got
not.
some of the vent valves in the schematic.
Does he?
But
Okay.
you're right. I haven't seen where this one is, but
I was looking too.
Down there's probably by your feet.
yeah. I know where it is in the plane, but I don't know exactly where the valve is or the.
No, I mean the vent is probably underneath the instrument panel.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, probably so. Okay, and and this is, I think, behind the co-pilot seat, if I'm not mistaken. This is your crank for your emergency or manual gear let down, gear control.
Got to have one of those.
Now that would be annoying.
You don't lose it. Don't lose it. All right, and then again, I don't know. This is the same on the Bonanza. It shows you a over top view of your seats.
I was wondering about that view. Yeah. Let's see the top of your head. Yeah.
Yep. And then your 6-pack. So in your airspeed indicator, we talked about that. Attitude indicator, HSI, which is a lot of nice stuff. The HSI also has a little. Well, no, not the HSI. The attitude indicator has a little light that lights up if you programmed in a decision altitude. If you're on instrument approach, for example, you've programmed in a decision altitude. It will light up when you've reached that. So that's kind of a nice little feature if you're an instrument pilot. Okay, so that takes us to the end of the boring stuff, going through the slide deck. So now we can do some demos and some playing around. So let's go. We'll get in and I'll go over the cockpit real quick. Then we'll switch to Mike, who will do startup. and I may do the vapor lock since I have the hot engine. He won't. Howard will do the feathering, then I'll do our RNAV computer demo, and then we'll just kind of practice a little bit. So, any questions before we get into that?
Now's your chance there, chat. Jump in. It's certainly a lot of material. I do recommend that you guys get the PDF. It's a lot of stuff that takes, take your time to go through it. Same with the manual. There's a lot of stuff in there, and I've been using it as a reference text for now. Go to the sections I want to go to and eventually fill in the blanks with the other sections. There's a lot of stuff in there. And in fact, Charlie, like you said, I didn't even have to go through the POH. I normally do to validate stuff.
Yep.
And the Black Squirrel manual has it all. So there's got to be some pages in there I still haven't covered. So.
Yep. And there's a few mistakes in the manual, but it's pretty good. So.
They would probably want to hear that, Charlie. So maybe we should make note of that. Let them know.
Well, I will show you one thing. If I could pull up the manual real quick. So in the and I love his manuals because he's got a nice table of contents here. But down here under the engines, did I go too far? Engine physics, engines. Okay, and he's got engine power settings. So this is nice. So he's got takeoff power, and I showed the 75% table earlier on. So when you're at cruise, if you want 75%, here's your manifold settings, your RPM and whatnot. And again, he's got 65%. But if you go to the turbocharged version, takeoff power full throttle, so he shows that the manifold pressure decreases with altitude. But actually, that's not true. As I mentioned, and as the manual mentions elsewhere, you should be at full manifold pressure, 39.5 inches of mercury, all the way up to your critical altitude, which is around 20,000 feet. So if you were start in Denver, for example, at 5,000 feet, and you push those throttle full, you should be at 39.5 inches mercury, not 34.7. I'm not sure where these numbers came from. I haven't checked out these other numbers, fuel flow and whatnot, but I do know that if you take off at altitude with the turbocharged version, you will see the 39.5 all the way up, should be through critical altitude. So that's one thing that, and I'll probably put in discussion forum, ask him about this, just say, hey, am I misinterpreting something or whatnot? So there's a few things like that in there, but it's an excellent manual though. So, I mean, nobody's going to do one perfect without a little mistake here and there. So, okay, so quick cockpit, we've already seen most of it, so just again, I'm not showing it's got a nice yoke with timer and clock on it, so that's handy. If you want to see that, just pop it forward. Then of course all your switches here, lights. I like that he's got all of his icing switches all together, the way the plane's designed, and that's really nice. Your AC and your heat switches all together. So fuel, oxygen pressure is, I don't know where the oxygen pressure is. This one should be somewhere over here, but you will need oxygen at altitude.
I thought you were going to say you'll need oxygen at some point.
Yeah. And of course, all your engine gauges. So you see, I'm warmed up. I've got cylinder head temperature up, reasonable, temperature, all that. I'm not sure why my manifold pressure's getting funky there, but okay. With that, I think, Mike, if you're ready, let's switch to your screen and you can do your demos.
There you go, Mike.
Okay. All right. So I got to remember there's like a 4-second delay, I think it was from last time, from what I say to what I show.
Something like that.
Okay. So, got to do it and then wait and say it. So, all right. So, yeah. So looking at the checklist here, we'll go through the cold and dark startup, and then we'll do the engine flooded one. So, which the engine flooded one I was telling Charlie earlier was kind of fun to do, because at one point it was flooded so bad it almost didn't start because the starter was getting pretty hot, and when it did, it backfired pretty bad. So it was kind of interesting to do that, which there's a chance of fire, the manual says, if it's like that. So maybe we can make a fire today. I'm not sure, but we'll try. But no, the tablet here that Charlie was talking about comes in very handy. And so let's kind of put that off to the side so we can see everything. Let's do maybe over here. All right, have to forgive me, I'm getting over a cold right now. So looking at the checklist here, so we'll remove the control locks, which is the red right here. So we'll remove that. And then I'm just going to get the yoke out of the way so we can see the whole cockpit here. All right, so cabin door should be latched. It is latched and closed. And then our parking brake is set. And then we have the emergencies, our gear handle, which is back here behind the center console here, but kind of behind the co-pilot there. So it is stowed and everything. All right, so we will make sure all the breakers are in. So from the orientation that Charlie showed us, all the breakers are in. They do work, so we can actually pull them up here. So we want to make sure that they're all pushed in. So all the circuits are closed. And then we'll look at flaps are up over here. And then we look for the oxygen pressure here. It is in the green. It says 1550 to 1850, but mine's usually a little over 2000 each time. So I guess that's normal there, but it is showing in green. And then if we go down to the center console, we want to make sure that the cowl flaps are open. That's fully open there. Throttles are closed. Propeller high RPM. Propeller high RPM. Mixture is full rich. And then aileron trim is centered. And then also the rudder trim is showing centered as well. And then landing gear handle down. And then way down here, kind of by your left foot, is the alternate static air. That one should be on normal, which is in the out position here. Okay, so now we have our fuel switches, fuel selectors, down here. So we have the left tank and the right tank. So we'll put the left one on, and then we'll put the right tank on. And then next we will turn on the beacon light, and then the battery master. As Charlie mentioned earlier, I like how everything is organized. So all of your master electrical switches are here. So the next is the left alternator, followed by the right alternator. And now that the master switch is on, we can see that the battery power is here. The switch is enabled, which turns on this main bus. And then everything that's green is energized right now. So we can see that these branches are energized, and then we can see what those are driven off of right now. As we turn more things on, such as the generators and such, we'll see other things come online here. In the avionics master switch, we'll see all this come online as well when we get to that point.
Such a cool interface.
It is. Oh, excuse me. All right, so the next, we will check for the fuel quantities. So left tank and right tank, both of them are full. And then Howard, make sure, if you can, make sure my sim sounds are up, because some of these have some really nice sounds coming up here soon.
1 second. Yeah, you said about half, but I'll bring it all the way up.
Okay.
There we go.
All right, so the next portion is for the left and right boost pumps. And in the manual, it does mention that Boris did the audio, Boris Works did the audio in this. And it's actually modeled really nicely. So when I turn the left boost pump on, you'll actually hear it like in my left headphones. And then when I turn the right one, I'll actually hear it on the right side of the headphones. So the spatial is done really well in here. So I'm going to turn the left fuel pump on here. And it says audible, so I'm going to turn it off. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the right boost pump. I'm going to turn it on, make sure I can hear it, and then we'll turn it off. Yep, and I hear that, so that's good to go. So next part of the checklist, we're moving to the engine start cold. All right, so we'll have the right, I'm going to kind of get us a view here so we can see everything happen here a little better.
Check, tell us if it's a bit too loud. Its VU meter is about halfway up for his sim sounds, but if as long as you can hear Mike, we'll leave it there.
So what we'll pay attention to here is I have the throttle quadrant here. We can see here's where the fuel boost pump switches are. And then we'll have the left and right oil pressure. Left and right fuel flow is here. And then left and right RPM. So that's the main gauges we're going to be looking at this point right here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the right mixture to a full rich. And then I'm going to put the right propeller at a high RPM. And then right throttle is full open. And then the checklist says to put the right boost pump on high for 2 to 3 seconds. It's a 3-position switch, so off, low, and high. So I'm going to do that. And we can see here in the tablet, the blue fuel flow has come in over here. And we have a little bit at the top of the cylinder heads here, as well as the lines here. So then next it says to bring the right throttle to about 1/2 inch. And then we'll engage the right starter. And if I do everything right, it should start up. There she goes. And then idle up to about 1,000 to 1,200 RPM. There we go, so about 1,100 there. They do have a visual synchro phaser here, which is pretty cool. So when both engines are running, whichever direction is spinning, that's the propel that's spinning the fastest. So it's kind of cool. It's immaterial right now, but when we crank the left one, we'll see it. So oil pressure that we see down here at the bottom right is coming up. So everything is good there. It's in the green. And we can see the right annunciator light has gone out as well.
Boy, you make it look so easy, Mike.
Lots of practice. Though I do enjoy this one. So now we'll go to the left engine. Here we go. Okay, so we will do the exact same steps again. So I'm going to bring the left mixture to full rich. Left propeller to full open. And then left throttle to full open. And then left boost pump will go on to high for about 2 to 3 seconds. And again, we can see the lines got filled with fuel, as well as a little bit in the cylinder heads there. So we'll bring the left throttle to about 1/2 inch. And then we will start it up.
As long as we can hear Mike talk.
There she goes.
Sweet.
So everything's looking good here. If I cranked on it for a little longer, this is the starter motor here. it'll actually start turning orange. So in the manual, it mentions that as the starter starts generating heat, obviously the outside of the casing, the starter will get hot too. So this will actually go from a bluish greenish to an orange to a red, and then it'll actually disconnect from the electrical circuit because it's just too hot to even run. And you either got to wait time like you would in real life to cool it off, or you could just hit repair starter. So
I've done that about 18 times now. Repaired the starter.
So is Shrap not on chat today? Because it seems like Surly Dev is taking his place.
Yeah, Surly Dev is filling in for Shrap right now.
that's funny.
Turn mic down to about 1% so we could just listen to the plane.
The plane sounds are nice. I mean, I can open the window here.
It is cool. You open the windows, like, yeah, that kind of thing. That attention to detail. But I'll turn it down a bit now because the VU meters are up into the red, so I'll just bring it down a little. We got to still hear Mike, you guys.
I was hoping it'd been a little bit warm. I had my door open the whole time Charlie was talking, so the temperature didn't build up in here very much. But what is kind of nice is, so down here are the switches for the air conditioner. So this first one is the air conditioner compressor itself, and then next is the blower motor. So if I turn on the air conditioner, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. So now I got the air conditioner on. The target is temperature is red, which means you're not going to be able to achieve it because the compressor itself isn't running. And when this is red and I've turned the switch on, the compressor isn't running, it just means that the RPMs on the left engine aren't high enough. And I'm at the bare minimum right here. So if it's at 1,000 RPMs right now. If I bring up just a little bit, you'll see the compressor engage. This target will no longer be red, and you'll actually see the coil here start heating up and cooling down. So I'm going to increase the RPMs of the left engine a little bit here. There we go. The compressor is engaged, and now we'll actually see the compression of the refrigerant and the cooling through the coil happen right there. And we've already cooled down 1 degree in the cabin. And if I turn that blower up a little bit more, you'll see it cooling down a little faster here in a second. But 59 now and so forth. So yeah, it works out really cool. And if I bring the throttle back a little bit, you'll see the compressor disengaged. And then this will slowly start warming back up or cooling off. Now if we go to the electrical page we were before, everything is here. We'll see avionics master is still red. I can turn the avionics on here. And this is the first aircraft I've ever seen this in. When I turn the avionics master on, I can actually hear a pop from the comm radio on my headphones. You hear that big thud from the amplifier of the audio, which is pretty cool. It's modeled that well.
But if you turn that avionics switch on before you start the engine, you might get a louder pop.
That's true too.
Right?
All right, so let's bring this down so it turns off, and let's just try to flood the engine here.
The only pilot I know that wants to flood the engine.
Charlie asked us to.
You're a sick man, Mike.
All right, so I'm gonna do a full mixture there. I'm gonna put the right boost pump on high. Now we see the fuel actually filling up into the top of the cylinders here. All right, let's turn the pump off now. So on the checklist, it has, if the engine's flooded, you're going to start with the right mixture, lean. It can't be a cutoff, it just has to be lean. The right propeller will be the high RPM, and then the right throttle about 1/2 inch open. And then it says to engage the right starter and then advance the right throttle until it actually starts. So let's see if we can do that. Keep it. We're going to listen to it, and then watch the starter here. Well, first, let me do this real quick here. I'm going to turn the fuel pump on. You'll hear the whine of the fuel pump, and as I engage the starter, you'll actually hear the pitch of that fuel pump change. It's that realistic. So here we go. It actually started up on the first try. That was actually kind of interesting. Let's see if I can make it.
I'm playing the volume here just to make sure.
There we go. Put a lot of fuel in there. Let's try that again. So it started a lot easier than I thought it would. Let's try and get the left engine flooded more.
I think the plane's afraid of you by this time, Mike. It's just going to cooperate.
Let's just really get this left one a good bit. There we go. That's quite a bit in there. So let's see what happens here. All right, so let's turn the fuel pump off. We'll lean that out. And here we go. That's what I wanted her to do. You notice the star is starting to turn red on the outside casing here. There she goes. No backfire this time, but it started up.
It looked like a backfire in there. It was a red.
Yeah, it might have been. It
was a red jolt in there.
Yeah. A small one. Yeah.
That's cool.
So what Mike didn't show you, what Mike did show you, if you tried to start up with the normal procedures, it wouldn't work because it's flooded.
Right.
Which has happened to some of us.
Yep.
Oh. I was...
well, that's true. So you want me flood it and try the normal procedure pre-throttling?
If you want. We got time.
All right, so go back to the right engine here.
And although I was orbiting around the airport, I wasn't paying attention, and I'm way far north. So I'll come back toward the airport. I wasn't paying attention. I was paying attention to chat.
All right, let's flood that really good. All right, there we go. All right, so if we're saying we don't know it's flooded yet, so going to the normal checklist, mixture, right mixture full rich, right propeller is high RPM, right throttle full open, and it says high for 2 to 3 seconds like we did before. Okay. And then we'll bring the throttle to 1/2 inch, and then we'll engage the right starter like we did before and see how she does. Let's try that again. You see my battery level has gone from 93 to 91.
You guys
Starter's getting warm.
You guys can see what a valuable learning tool this tablet is, you guys. From Black Square. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it should have normally started by this time.
Yep.
Oh yeah, and many times when we're starting, it's instant.
See,
4 seconds.
and when I first hit that starter, you actually hear a little hesitation now. It's like a little, and then it goes. It's not as spiffy as it kind of was before. And the battery is getting warm too now from all the cranking we've done. So let's start it again.
Yeah, the battery. Yeah, I can see that. Cool.
Oh, there she goes. So the battery is very hot. Starter is very hot. So
Yeah, look at
I'll
that.
start to the engine instead of doing the flooded one.
These are things that are modeled in the tablet and the plane that people don't realize until this is why we call it study level, you guys. You'll see Charlie's described it as study level in some of his slides. This is the reason why. In real life, you have to study these things, and here you can actually practice these things. Pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool. All right, that's all I had there. Correct, Charlie?
Yep.
Didn't catch on fire. Darn it. I had to try that again.
You're a sick man, Mike.
All right, if you want to put on my plane, we'll show the we'll show the hot engine start, the vapor lock, if everything works.
Yep, we're back on yours now.
Okay, so I'm showing same view Mike had basically. Let me zoom in just a hair, so you can see the pedestal with your levers for engine control, your gauges, and then I've got the tablet showing the right engine analyzer. Now, I've been running pretty much since the lesson started. I've been running my engines at about 1,000, 1,200 RPM, so the engine's warm. When I shut it down when Mike started his demo, and when I shut it down, this line here for the fuel, from the fuel pump, all the way to the ejector control, and then to each cylinder was blue with fuel full. And then after I shut it down, gradually that blue disappeared, starting from the cylinders and going back all the way back, basically simulating a hot engine gradually vaporizing the fuel in those lines as the heat from the engine, kind of heated everything else up. So it's been about 10 or 15 minutes since I shut down. Now I'm going to try a regular start. So if I remember, I don't have the checklist in front of me, but if I remember the procedure, we'll start with the right engine. So prop full forward, mixture full forward. Well, but first I guess I better turn my battery on. So turn the battery on. Okay. And things come up. Now I'll go ahead and turn my right alternator on since I'm starting with the right. We'll do some lights here. We'll do the beacon light. Okay. So starting with the right engine. All right. So I've got mixture full forward, prop full forward, and then I'll right throttle full forward. Now I'll turn the right fuel pump on high, and you'll see the fuel pump go on there for a few seconds. Bring it back down, bring the throttle down. Now I will engage, well, let me turn off this magneto. Let me engage the right magneto here. There's both. Now bring it over to start, and it cranks. Okay. It started right up. It wasn't supposed to do that. Because I let it cool too long.
You know what the problem is, Charlie?
What's that?
You're trying to stream it.
Yeah.
That's as soon as we stream, things may not work.
Exactly.
Yeah. We practiced
Well,
it
it
many
apparently did
times.
cool down because my cylinder head temperatures are quite a bit cooler.
Yes.
But actually, what will happen is it won't crank because you can't get fuel through here because of vapor lock. And what you have to do, and let me just shut down here. I'll pull the mixture lever back, shut it down, and what you actually have to do, and I'll turn mags off as well. You keep your mixture off, your throttle closed, and then you can run your fuel pump for a little while. And you'll actually see this will all be black, these lines, because vapor, and then you'll actually gradually see the blue come as it circulates, and it will basically get all these lines blue, cool them off. Now we don't have any fuel going into the cylinders because we have the mixture cut off. So once that happens, then you can turn, and well, I say once it happens, in the simulator, you can look at the tablet and see it happening. In a real plane, of course, you can't. But they say 10 to 20 seconds, keep the fuel pump on under those conditions, and then you can try it, crank it up, and if it doesn't start, well, then do it again, 10 to 20 seconds to see if you can cool off those fuel lines and get liquid in there. I'm not sure what's going on with, is that Mike? Yeah, I was going to say, I see some shadow there. That's
we
Mike
knew
trying
someone
to get
was
to
at
my
the door,
plane.
yeah. So let me in. I want to see this, yeah.
I'm not even moving. I don't know why it does that. I'm not even moving.
Yeah, it's some bug. Anyway, so, but yeah, I've had it hot and not be able to start up again. So that's what you do in that case. So I'm just going to start everything up now, get it cranking, and then but in the meantime, actually, Howard, why don't we go to you?
Sure. We could do that. All right, so let me just take it over to my headset mic.
I will say while you're getting ready, Howard, it was I don't know if anyone else had this issue with planes in the sim even in 2020, but for some reason the first time you install a plane and get into it, things don't work quite right, and that happened to me the other day. I could never start this plane no matter what I did. I backed out and went back in, everything just started fine. So if it doesn't start the very first time after installation, you might want to back out and go back in, and that might resolve it.
Good plan. So you should be able to hear me. Can you guys hear me on the microphone here? You got audio from me? Okay, good. That's the audio from this microphone right here now. All right, so we're cruising around here. You notice the airport's just over here. I've been doing... here, we'll go outside for a second. I've just been doing orbits for a long time here in a holding pattern near the airport. I'm staying over in the practice area. Normally I call the tower and tell them I'm doing some practice area upper level air work. We won't go through the ATC stuff right now. We're just going to focus on engine. So they know where I am, and if I'm in trouble, I've done a couple of emergency landings from here, killing the engines and gliding into, you can see where Mike is right here, and these guys, that's the airport we came from. You guys might even know this field well, because this is the one where we've been flying out of the Cessna aircraft field here. I think this is McConnell Air Force Base back here, and this is the Beach Factory Airport, it's actually called. And so we're flying out of the Beach Factory Airport, of course, because, you know, that's what we're flying. So let's go back inside. Let's just have a look at what's happening here. I'm going to leave it right now on, I've got it on autopilot with just heading and just flying back and forth near the airport, just so that I can focus on the engine itself, you guys. So one of the things you notice that Mike has done and Charlie has done is go and take a look at the tablet down here on the bottom left here. When you click that, this is such a valuable thing that we've been looking at. And when we look at this, I always mention it as a learning tool, because so many things are in here that you could focus on if you want. While he was starting the engine, you notice that the mags were actually showing you them going really slowly as he was starting the engine. And then all the fluids and the colors, and it's just amazing. So one thing I want to show you, though, is take a look here at this orange area that you see here. This is actually the oil in the governor of the propeller. All right, and there's two pins here also. Those pins will change depending on whether I'm successful or not in feathering the engine with an engine failure. So that's what we want to look at. You'll see the same thing over here on the right engine, same exact thing, but we're going to fail the critical engine here, the left engine. We're going to try to fail it and see what happens. You know, most people don't try to fail it, but we're going to do that. So as we get ready to do that, I'm just going to turn us around so we're near the airport. Again, if I'm going to do an engine failure, I want to be near the airport, you know, so I can just glide in. Even if I have a second engine failure, I just want to be able to glide in. Let's bring this back around like this. And let me just move this over. Nice thing about the tablet is put it where you need it. So I want to still look at controls down here, and I want to still look at what's happening up here. I want to certainly be able to look at my engine instruments, because I'm going to be killing one of them. I've got it pretty much synchronized. You notice here what Mike was talking about, this synchronization, which you see in a lot of planes. You'll see that sort of thing that have more than one engine. So that's yeah, there's so many things in here that are so real. All right, so what I'm going to simply do, you guys, to kill an engine, I'm just going to take the mixture and just kill it completely. Obviously, you know, I'm going to starve the engine of fuel. And if you take a look at the checklist for the airplane, the checklist here talks about, I'll just let that run there. It looks like I'm pretty much on track. Hold on a second. Let's bring it over, not right over top of the airport. There we go. So you look in here, and the engine failure in flight checklist that's in the manual from Black Square, they talk about the first thing to do when you have an engine failure is make your airspeed to 115 knots. Identify the inoperative engine, which is pretty simple to do, isn't it? I mean, you got a visual right here out the window. And then the first thing we do is get rid of the throttle. So we close the throttle and we immediately feather. So you can actually do this simultaneously because they're side by side down here. All right, and you could actually put one finger on, you know, with a gap in the middle, one finger on the left throttle and one finger on the left. You know, you could do it simultaneously, but I'll probably just do it one at a time. And I do want to mention to you, and you know, that's really all we're going to do to see it happen. We could go through the rest. Normally with any engine failure, it's cause check first. So you don't shut everything down, shut off fuel and turn it off and feather it. You first feather it so that it doesn't affect your plane. And then secondly, you would go to cause check. In other words, put it back to full mixture and make sure your fuel switch is on. Maybe even give it a fuel pump and do an attempted start. And if it starts up and you're fine and everything looks good and everything's in the green, there's no cause for alarm, right? And then if it still doesn't go, you can see down here, if no restart, all right, select the nearest airport. You see that? So if the restart doesn't work, you don't just keep going and go, I could go on one engine, I'm good. No, typically we will go to the nearest airport on one engine, because what happens if that second engine fails, of course, right? And then you can see in here, the next step is always to turn everything off. The fuel, the boost pump, the magnetos, and the alternator. So get those things off. But the very first thing you notice back here, the very first thing you notice is to make sure that we get that feather going. All right, so let me just mention what that means and then we'll do it. All right, and let me see where I am. I'm right near the airport, so we're good. So with feathering, if you just take a look at the picture of me in the video right now, if you put your hand out the window facing the wind, it'll push your hand. Let's say that you're looking at the side view now. I got my hand out the window of a moving car, we'll say. Then the wind that will hit your hand will force your hand back, and you got to push against the wind. But if you were to actually turn your hand, and we've done this as kids, right? If you were to turn your hand like this, there's no resistance there. And this is what we mean by feathering. The oncoming wind hitting the propellers, we want the propellers to give us the least amount of drag. If they're left in the normal positions, whatever angle that is, then there's lots of drag on each of the blades of the propeller. And it's going to make the plane do strange things, of course. And of course, you're going to yaw in one direction or the other, and it depends on whether it's the critical engine or not. But the simple thing is, if we take a look on the outside of the plane, and let's move this over. There we go. Well, it's gone now. Okay. If we look at the outside of the plane, like the top view, if you were to have this as your inoperative engine, and you don't adjust for feathering, then there's going to be a ton of drag right here. A ton of drag. Those propellers are facing the wind. And so that drag is actually going to push, or certainly the power of this one will turn the plane that way. And you have to compensate for that with trim. Now, while we're doing this, I'm getting out into I want to get back toward the airport, but let me just do a quick turn. So you get the idea that if there's too much drag, what do? And the beautiful thing here with a variable pitch propeller is that we can feather it so that the wind now has very little effect on drag. There's obviously going to be some in there, but it's going to be very little effect. So that's what's desirable here. And then we continue on from there and do normal flight without fighting that yaw that's happening. Let me just have a look at my heading bug here. We'll get the heading bug back in the right direction here. And then we'll just leave it. Set it, forget it. There we go. Right about there. That'll take us back toward the airport. All right, so what we want to do now is we just want to actually do the procedure. Remember, the first thing they did, we identify the engine that's obviously stopped or inoperative, and we'll be able to see that with certainly with when we take a look at the RPMs, we'll be able to see needles fall. We'll be able to see them go out of the green. We should see an annunciator light show up. We should see all kinds of trouble, right? And so we identify the inoperative engine. We take the throttle here, and I'll just move this down a little like this. We don't need to see outside. We're going to take this left throttle and the left propeller lever, pull them all the way back, and then take the propeller lever right into what's called the feather position. You'll notice down here that we have this red area here, and if you take a look closely, you'll see it says the word feather. Now, we can't do this in our home cockpit for this airplane. We've tried, and Charlie's done some research, and we've certainly sent a message through to Black Square about it. But so what I'm going to do is manually pull it. The troubles I've had to do this demo and all my practicing was that my controls in my home cockpit are overriding these when I pull them back. So I have pulled it back into feather, and my controls in my home cockpit have pushed it back up where it is right now. So that's not good. So we'll see if we can pull it off again. I've been successful a few times with this, but the best way to do this demo would be to simply unbind your home cockpit from these levers. Then they're free to move wherever you want them. So we'll see how that goes. All right, let's see where we are. We're heading in the right direction. We're good. So now I'm going to make it happen. All right, let's just pull back a bit here so we can see everything that's going on, including we're going to see the left engine up here. Let's make sure we're on left. Yep. And then we're going to make it happen. So, all right, here goes. Procedures here. And it's going to go fast because I want to get this thing feathered properly real quickly. Now, because I'm in autopilot, it's going to try to keep the same course. It's going to try to follow that heading bug. So I'm going to take it out of autopilot. It's out now. And I've got it trimmed, so it's going to pretty much go the same direction it was going, but I don't want autopilot to correct for me. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is kill the engine. Here we go. Boom. What's going to happen? You notice what's happening right away. Right away. Look at this plane. I'm in trouble. So unless I correct for that, unless I trim it or just fly the plane, that engine now is in trouble. It's not producing any thrust, and look at that. Just so drastic. I'm going to use the yoke to bring it back, and I'm going to fly the plane. Now from here, I'm going to adjust trim. I'm not going to show that to you right now, but from here we would normally adjust trim, and immediately I'm going to pull throttle, and I'm going to pull the propeller lever. Oops, I didn't show that to you. I just pulled throttle, I pulled propeller lever, and if I was fast enough, I pulled it without the pins injecting. So it should be able to stop the propeller from moving. It'll actually stop completely if I did it right. There's our annunciator. There's our indication the left engine's in trouble. Nothing's in the green. And the propeller should actually stop. And I was probably talking too much and didn't catch it in time. It looks like it's still working just fine. So we're going to do it once more. And the second time I'm not going to, you can notice that it's windmilling, you guys. Take a look at the pistons. They're still moving. They should be stopped if I've got this feathered properly. So here I'm going to go through the normal checklist to get this running again. I'm going to turn on the low pump just to get going. I'm going to bring my mixture back up again. And I'm going to bring my propeller lever back up into a position that it was in before, and now I'll bring my throttle back up, and I should be able to get my RPMs back up again, and I don't have to make corrections. Let me just make sure my altitude's still good. I was at 4,000 feet. I lost 1,000 feet playing around. I lost 1,000 feet. All right, one more try, and this time I'll do the right engine just for the heck of it, just so we can see what's going on. A little harder to see the propeller there, but we'll do it. All right, so this time I'm not going to talk. We know the procedure. I'm going to cut a mixture down so that the engine's gone. You could also just kill the fuel down here too. There's fuel selectors on the floor, but we're just going to do the mixture thing again. I'm going to immediately pull back throttle and my propeller lever, and hopefully I did it quick enough without my home cockpit interfering. All right, so here goes without me talking this time. Can't get it into feather. Look. Won't go to feather. Yeah, it's fighting. All right. But you notice the yaw anyway. And we'll get this over to the right engine. Now, I do have a backup video, you guys. We'll go watch the video at the critical point when it actually cuts it out. McMaster glide port. Okay, I'm way north. I'm still heading north. All right. And you notice that sorry guys, my hat switch is kind of twitchy, but you notice that both, if I can hold that steady. Okay, let me do something else. Let me use my mouse for this. and you notice both of them, they're still running properly, so they're still blurring. All right, so let me just give you an idea. Again, I'm going to just put that back up again for a minute. It's just fighting my home cockpit again. So this was fine earlier, but now it's giving me grief, as always on a stream. So I'll show you a video, or let me just start this up again. That was my right one, so there. Should be started just by windmilling. It should actually turn it. Let me just see if I've got it. Yep, it's working now. All right, so my controls are actually overriding. I'm going to try one more time, and then we're just going to quit and look at the video, you guys. So I was successful in making a video, so we'll see that in a second. Wanted to show it to you live. All right, I'm going to do it really quickly here. Mixture, throttle, and then right there. That should have happened really quickly. There's the light. You can see the pistons are slowing down. I'm also at 2,500 feet doing an emergency procedure, and I was successful this time. All right, and now I'm going to increase the throttle on my right engine. Oh man, as soon as I touched it, too bad you didn't see it, you guys. As soon as I touched my throttle, all of a sudden the engine went flying again, because it said, oh, your controls are live. So look, it jumped us back up again. Which
we
one
did see it. You could see each other.
Yeah, I'm going to leave everything alone this time. See if I can pull it off again. There, the pistons are slowing down. And it probably will just windmill right now. There we go. Did it. Let's look out front real quick. There we go. Look at that. And you notice the blades are so thin because they're feathered, you guys. Whoops, got some yaw going on, which I expect. And if I touch my throttle right now, it'll probably start it up again, because my home cockpit controls are taking over. But there's what you want. That's desirable. And you can keep going even on takeoff. You saw the numbers that Charlie showed us. On takeoff, that single engine can still take you up to altitude. Then you should be turning around, declaring an emergency, and going into land. And, you know, because you shouldn't be continuing on with one engine unless you're over the ocean or something like that. If you've got a nearby airport, you should be going there. So that's the essence of my demonstration. I do want to mention to you that, let me just see if I can find it here. Right here. I do have it in a video. If you guys do want it, I could probably drop that on the Ko-Fi site. But I do want to mention that you can eventually go in and land, talk to ATC, go in and land, and believe it or not, St. Tensions will send out the trucks. Look at this. So I declared an emergency. I went in and I put on 7700 on the transponder, and certainly they said stay on the runway, emergency personnel are on their way. And it actually worked. It was really cool. So I wanted to mention that because that was fun. It made it a bit, you know, a whole lot more real about losing an engine, declaring an emergency, and heading to the airport. You know, there's study level stuff, you guys, right there.
And in case anyone's wondering, this airplane does not have aerobatic smoke.
No, that wasn't aerobatic smoke. That was St. Tensions Mayday call, emergency response. It was great. All right, let me see if I can find yours, Charlie, right there. We're back to your screen. All right, and I'll take my plane into land.
So we're going to do the RNAV, area navigation demonstration. But before we do that, I learned something new just now. My engines were acting funky, and you notice the right engine, the manifold pressure needles bouncing around, and the RPM a little bit bouncing around. And if you look at the engine analyzer, I see this flash every once in a while on these engines. I thought both engines were doing it. I thought, well, maybe it's the sim, or maybe I need to restart, or what's going on. But I just happened to look a little harder at what's happening in this case, because I fixed it with the left engine. What we're seeing plug fouling. So because I was getting my engine hot for the demo of the hot start, I was running the engines a long time, but I failed to lean the mixture. So, you know, on ground operations, you're supposed to lean the mixture so prevent plug fouling and whatnot when you're at idle or close to idle. And so that's what's happening. This is caused by plug fouling. Now, you should be able to, and I'm not going to do it now because it would take too long, you should be able to pull the mixture back, and over a little bit of time, that's one way to help alleviate plug fouling. But you notice the left engine is running fine. Everything looks good on the engine analyzer. The right engines is where you're getting these oh, one other thing, in the left engine, you notice the plugs are all, well, I guess white to me. But you notice in the right engine, you see a little bit of, I guess that's red. That indicates some fouling with the plugs. All you have to do is hit clean plugs, and boom, they're fine. Manifold pressure steady, everything looks good.
Wish it were that easy in real life.
Yeah.
Where's the button to clean the plugs?
Exactly. So that was another nice learning. Anyway, what we're going to do now is we're going to demonstrate, if I can pull up my slides here. So we're going to demonstrate the area navigation, and I'm doing this out of the Beech factory. So I've got a little flight plan. We're not going to fly the whole flight plan, but I'm going to program these waypoints in, just so you can see how that goes. Now, what you need to do is make sure you select radio only avionics option from the tablet if you want to use autopilot with the RNAV. I am not going to, hold on one second. I'm not going to use the autopilot, so you could put in the other avionics, but I'll show you quickly how to select those from the tablet. You can just go to options, and then here's your choices. So I'll do the GNS 530, 430. Select them and then hit confirm, and in a few seconds you'll see them pop up over here, and you'll see they'll be selected here, and then they'll come on. So it takes a few seconds to do that, but for this purpose of this demonstration, I'm not going to use those. You can actually do the area navigation because it puts the KNS-81 over here on the right. Let's show you that. And you can navigate with it, but you can't use it for autopilot. But we'll go back to the way we had it. Okay, so while it's doing that, let's get rid of the tablet here. Okay, so now going back to the slide. So what we're going to do is I'll put in, here's where we're starting. I'll put in 3 waypoints, 1, 2, 3, and I'll show you how to do that. Both find the information you need as well as enter them in, and then we'll start flying to one of them. I don't know as time permits, we may not get all the way, but I'll take off and I'll probably fly to the lake here. That's Cheney Reservoir. So next slide. So here's basically how you, so I've got, again, I said 3 waypoints. I programmed a 4th thing in. This is the ILS coming into Dwight D. Eisenhower 01 left. Theoretically, I think this should work if you put it in, if you put the RNAV computer into, instead of RNAV mode, into VOR mode, it ought to be able to track an ILS just as well as it does a VOR. I have found that doesn't work very well. It's got some problems. So I'll also put a note in the forum and see if I'm doing something wrong. It does track the VORs just fine, but with ILSs, it seems to have a problem. It will capture the glide slope, but the localizer doesn't seem to work very well with it. So we're not going to do that part. But I'll go ahead and put in all these 4 anyway. I'll show you how to do that. But first, to get them, first waypoint is Newton City County Airport. So Kilo Echo Whiskey Kilo. And that's just an airport, but there's no VOR there, so of course we have no GPS, so we want to navigate some other way, so we'll use the RNAV navigation. And we will pick this VOR here, and we will find out, set in the details for here. Now, one way to do that, if you have an airport, you can go to basically SkyVector or other data, and you pull up right from the airport information page, near eye navigation H, and you see various VORs, and here's Hutchinson, frequency, radial, and distance. So this airport is on the 79-degree radial at 31.4 miles from the Hutchinson VOR. So basically what you would program in is the frequency, then the 79-degree radial, and distance 31.4. And you don't put in the waypoint ID, that's just for your information in the table here. Now, to do the next one, we'll do the Cheney Reservoir here, a point there. Well, it's not an airport, so you can't go look up where the nearest VOR is and what the radial is from this waypoint. So you got to measure it. So we do that. You can do any chart. I did it with Little Nav Map, very easy. you can use the show distance function from little nav map. I can quickly well, actually I can show the process of that. Let me make this a little bit bigger. So there's where I am. Okay, here's the I believe it was the ICT. Yeah, so we're using this ICT VOR, and there's the point we want to go to. So you just right click on that, and from the context menu, come down to measure distance from. We're going to measure distance from this vortex. It's a Wichita vortex. And you come over here to the point that you want and click it, and boom, there's all your information. We're the 269-degree radial from this VOR at 11.7 nautical miles. So you've got it all right there. So going back to here, basically why I measured, I guess I measured a slightly different spot, 266-degree radial and 11.4 miles to the Cheney Reservoir. So you just stick that in. So it's just 260, well, 265, I guess I have in the table, but 266, 265, 11.4, 11.6, I guess. I measured it later. I'd already put in some data. So there's the data that we'll put in, these 4 points. And again, I did a similar thing. CF, BTF is a GPS waypoint. Actually, you'll find it on the charts. That's basically coming into the airport right on 01 right into Eisenhower Airport. So now we will program those in. So let's go to a view where we can see now the instrument here, KNS-81. Okay, so we're on waypoint 1, and we want to put in 116.8 is the Hutchison VOR, so I need to adjust it. So I've already got frequency selected here, so I can just adjust the finer one here. Would I say 116.8? Well, I guess I got it down here. Okay, there's 116.8. Click the data button, and I want the 79-degree radial. So we're on radial, so I just move this. And the nice thing, of course, you can maximum the 360 since it's compass. So I want the 79-degree radial. Now, if I needed to do the ones, I could just do the inner knob and do the ones. And if I needed to do decimal, click that out, and you can do the decimal. But for this purpose, we didn't get that fine. So 79-degree radial, click the data button, and then the distance is 31.4. So there's 31. Now I will do the decimal here, 31.4. So I have that programmed in. Okay, now I can go to waypoint 2. And if you remember from the table, waypoint 2 is ICT 113.8 is the frequency for the Wichita VOR, 265 radial, 11.6 nautical miles. So I'll pull that back up. So 113.8 is the frequency, and we got frequency selected. 13.8 and 265, hit data. That brings us to the radial. 265 is a radial. 260 and use, whoops, it's not decimal. 265, get rid of that, okay. And then 11.6, hit data, go to distance. Whoops, 10, 11, click the enter button, okay, 11.6. There we are, okay. Now, I could put in the other ones, but you've seen how it works, so for purpose of time, I'll skip that. Now, I'm gonna go to waypoint 2 to start with. I'm going to skip waypoint 1. So I'm just going to click the use button. You notice the 2 is no longer flashing. This becomes my active radial. So I'm all set to go. I will also, just for demonstration purposes, I will put in 113.8 in here and switch that on. And I will also do it on nav 2. So I've got both nav radios, and so actually 3 nav radios set to 113.8 because remember, this RNAV navigation computer also basically has its own nav receiver. Now to navigate to this waypoint as opposed to the VOR, I need to have this in RNAV mode. Now with the outer knob, you'll see we can switch it to VOR parallel mode, VOR mode, RNAV approach mode, or just RNAV mode, which is what I'll use. Then coming over here, I need to make sure that to use RNAV, you can't see it very well with the sun, but the HSI source has nav1 over on the left and RNAV, so we want to switch that to RNAV, and we want to switch the DME over to RNAV. Now we're on the ground, not up in the air, so we're not receiving anything from the VOR, so we'll have to get in the air to see that. All right, I think I'm ready to go. So I'm going to put on my head tracker. Sorry for this, I know it's a little bit of a pain.
I took mine off for my demo, but I think I should have left it on. It'd be easier to look around. Go for it, Charlie. Easier for us to see what's going on with your head tracker on.
Well, it's easy for me to fly, that's for sure, at least to taxi. Okay. So here is getting out to the runway. Now I chose this spot because I'm going to take off on runway 19, I think. 19, which goes to the left, and I don't need the whole runway. I'm mostly up to the end of the approach end of 19, so I'm not going to have to back taxi. There's no, this particular airport, there is no taxiway alongside the runway.
Yeah,
you got to back taxi on the runway, so I will stop before the whole short line. Turn on my transponder. Good weather. I'll leave the weather radar off. Turn on my landing lights and my strobe. Okay, flaps are good. I've already done other parts of the checklist, let's assume. So I think I'm ready. Let's take a look. Nobody coming in. Nobody coming in that way, so we're good to go. Now you notice when I slowed down to idle, you notice both alternator lights came on and low voltage light came on. So yeah, you got to have these. If you run the engines too slow, then
I think it's over 1,000 works, right?
Yeah, it's more like 700 or 800, I think, something like that. Okay, here we go. Start our takeoff roll. So 81, I think, was the VR, if I recall. This plane accelerates very nicely. Okay, and we're off. Tap the brakes. Bring up the gear. Okay, now you notice we're getting our VOR, so we're set. So we should be able to, now this is like a VOR, this is not, you have to turn the course needle and see where you are and have it. So it's on the 2, and we'll see where I am. Okay, there we go. So I need to go to that heading if I want to go direct to my waypoint. And we are accelerating, climbing very fast.
Thing's a performer.
Yes, let's level off about here. I think we'll just go about there. Let's trim it a bit more. Okay, we should be, now you notice here on the HSI, and again, I'm not using autopilot, so I'm manually flying it here. So we're a little bit, course is a little bit, or the radio we want for our waypoint is a little bit left of us, because I've got it on, what have I got it on? RNAV, which, well, it doesn't use angles. It uses, I think it's 5 nautical miles. So if you look at where we are on little nav map, so we're heading to this lake. Oops. Yeah, there we go. We're heading to this reservoir. So I'm a little bit off course, but that showed on the CDI. So I got to go this way just a little bit. So with that, you can see you can put in any point and track it just like a VOR, basically. Okay, let's see what else. Now, if I switch this from RNAV to NAV1 here on the HSI source, now it's tracking the actual VOR. So the VOR will be pointed. In fact, you can see if it's actually not that far off. If you look on a little nav map, they're almost in line, but not quite. And if I switch, actually, if I go back to RNAV mode and put this KNS-81 into VOR mode, you'll see the same thing. It's now tracking to the VOR instead of to the waypoint I put in. So that's the basic demo. We're not far away. I'll leave this in put this back in RNAV mode. We're about, 23 miles away. And I haven't got this trimmed very well. So we're about 23 miles away, 174 knots ground speed, 8 minutes before we come in. And this will behave again, just like a VOR. We cross over it. You'll see you'll see the to flag will flip to the from. Then you'll be traveling from, and you can continue traveling on that way. But then if you were to use that flight plan I showed you, you'd have to then switch your active waypoint to the next one, because it's not like a GPS, which will sequence your various waypoints automatically. So that's this demo. I think we'll just call it good there. And let's go back to the... Well, is there anything else we want to show, Howard? Did you want to do anything else? Is anyone else flying, or...
I came in and landed. I'm good. So
okay.
We've done some great demonstrations here. You guys have gone right in depth. Mike, you were very prepared. Great demo. That was very interesting. And Charlie, you tackled I think yours definitely was the hardest part. Mine was the easiest. You just cut the engine and pray. But the rest of you guys did a lot of homework and made it happen and showed us some real good depth of how good a quality this product is. It's pretty amazing.
Yep.
This is only some of the features. All right, well, let's finish up then.
I got one thing left to show whenever we get a second.
Go ahead, Mike.
All right, so I moved to nighttime so you can see this a little bit better. But
I've changed
right now I have the engines idle back to like 500 RPM, so neither generator is running right now, and we can see the battery is at 65%.
And red.
Yep. So it's only running on battery right now. It won't run too much longer. But we can see it's got 24-volt rail. It's drawing 14 amps right now. But if I do something like the flat motor, which is pretty intensive, which is right here, flat motor. If I engage it in a second, we'll see the current draw go up here.
Probably about 22 maybe.
Yeah, we peaked at 19 right there.
19, okay.
But what I wanted to show was right now, if you kind of keep a wide view of everything, just take note of my light that's hitting the wall right here, and then my attitude indicator and avionics and such. Right now they're kind of dim. I'm going to bring one of the engines up to at least the generator can kick in, and we'll see all these brighten up here real quick. So I'm going to bring that up. And there we saw, the whole outside got brighter, this got brighter, this got brighter. I'm going to bring it back down and we'll see that all dim again. And there it goes.
Ever see so many red lights on your annunciator? And Mike's not even worried. Look how calm he is, you guys.
I'm on the ground.
Yeah.
Taking off is optional, landing is mandatory. So that's all I had there.
Sweet.
Cool.
Great, Mike. Yeah, there's so much more to investigate in that area of electrical. And going over to the schematic like you did, well, it's sort of like a schematic, you guys, where it shows the current flow. It shows the green as Mike says, where it's energized, and red where it's not energized. That's such a beautiful visual, especially for us who understand electronics and electricity. We look at that and say, they've done that so well.
Yeah, I think talking with several developers, that's one thing they really liked about 2024 is the whole electrical simulation engine is very in-depth in 2024. So some developers, like obviously Black Square, are taking advantage of what's available to them now.
Yep.
So comments from chat, you guys, on all the demos we've done and Charlie's excellent presentation. This is all Charlie's work, you guys. I played a very small secondary role. I'm just the host of the stream, and I fly the plane and have fun with it also. But these guys did the homework and did everything, and Charlie made all this happen. So let's give him credit, you guys, and made for I think such a valuable lesson here. And we're going to make sure this one goes to YouTube as a polished one. And that's going to be a lot of fun. Let more of an audience see this one because there was a lot of work put into it. So that's pretty cool. Krabby1 says, what is the go around arrow on the left throttle? Well, we have that even on our Bravos, right? We have the go around arrow, and we have the little red button if it's programmed. And
mine is not programmed.
Mine isn't either, but many planes can do that. They can actually do the go around. That's the go around button. Right on the throttle. You should be holding that throttle and the yoke. You should be holding them for the last 500 feet before touchdown and the first 500 feet on takeoff. Those are where your hands belong. And that way you're not fumbling around to find levers. And that button is right there by your thumb. Your mic button is right there by your index finger on your left hand. So this is designed, this is the way it's designed. That's important that you can get those buttons when you need them, right? All right. Well, that's cool. Charlie, thanks a bunch. It's been great. And look at the timing. Man, you can do timing better on these lessons than I can. That's pretty amazing. And
so you want to go back to the slides?
I think, yeah, okay. I think that you've got more content in your lesson than I do, and you managed to deliver it more efficiently than I have. So I'll
be interested
my hats
in
off to you as a fellow trainer.
I may have gone too fast for some of it, and I'm not as good at banter as you are, Howard. So maybe a little bit boring.
Is that what it is? That's my new handle, Howard Banter Forder. Yeah, okay, that might stick. Yeah.
So anyway,
firewall banter.
Firewall banter. Yeah.
Don't need to summarize, but I'll skip that. But I will talk about some references. So if you like history, there's some great books on the beach, which I love to read about. And then there are some, you can find these on the web and download for free. There are a couple of POHs, one for the Baron 58 and the 58P. I didn't find one for the 58TC, but the 58P should cover a lot of it because it's turbocharged as well. The door's on the different side as the TC, but and of course this has the details on the pressurized cockpit. But and then of course there's your link to the Ko-fi site to get the PDF, which is there. Couple of things that need to be corrected. Maybe I'll correct them and put it on. You can see if Howard wants to update that. But
yeah, we'll update that automatically on the Ko-fi site. But right now it's as it was just before stream. So anything that you do on refinements, we'll make sure there's an update there, and you probably will get a notice from the Ko-fi site, you guys, about the update. Charlie, way to go. I think a great big round of applause is in order, you guys. I want to
say, Troy, phenomenal job on the preparation, Troy. Very good content. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. Wonderful stuff.
If you want to flip over my screen real quick.
We're at your screen, Charlie.
Oh yeah, you're at my screen. Okay, so I switched. I'm on autopilot, actually. You got to have RNAV up here. I'm just now coming in. If you'll notice, I'm 3 miles away from my 1 minute and 3 miles away from my waypoint. So this is the what is it? Whatever name of the reservoir was. So again, still on the RNAV, but now on autopilot. So you'll see if we're on that long, in 2.5 miles, you'll see this flip. So it's a cool system.
As it should,
no
yeah.
GPS. Yep.
And that is cool. I think a lot of people may have been surprised to hear that RNAV isn't GPS. RNAV, it stands for radio navigation, you guys, and it's been around since before GPS. So, that's why they have that chart that says RNAV GPS in brackets, approach. So that was actually, that probably was a surprise to some people too, Charlie, just to hear that, right?
Yep.
Thanks for that.
Sorry, quick question. Sure. So Troy, is your prop synced right now? Is that why it's not moving?
Yes, I've got the prop sync.
Wow, he's got a perfect sync in there. Is that something you did to make it perfect? Because I've had mine close, but not that solid.
I switched the prop sync switch on right here.
Look at that. A prop sync switch. I haven't used it yet.
Yep.
I could not get that thing stopped. I got it so close with playing with throttles. That's pretty amazing. I just want to show everybody before we go to credits. I want to show them. I took off while Charlie was presenting, and I hovered I did a bunch of circuits, and then I put it on autopilot and did a bunch of holding patterns.
Oh my!
And most of the lesson I was just up here just messing around, and a couple of times I ventured a little too far. So that's how it works, you guys. But some of this is the practice too. When we're practicing these things ahead of time, like Mike did. Mike probably went through a ton of practicing also to try and make it happen live while we're on stream. So That's how that
all my
goes.
all my stuff's been on the ground. I've only made one circuit in the plane.
Oh, you only got to fly once.
landing. What was your landing rate, Mike? 51 or
53.
something?
That's why it was 51. Now we know why. No, I'm just kidding. Way to go, Mike, on that great landing rate. All right, you guys, we're going to go to credits. Thanks. We're right on time. This has been great. Thanks for your participation in chat. If you have any questions, certainly come on Thursday. It's Cockpit Chatter. We talk about products, so we talk about new developments, we talk about anything at all to do with our simulation and our love of aviation. And the whole gang will be there, whoever can be available, and you can ask your questions as you go over some of this material in the VOD, and you'll be able to come and bring your questions to our chat. And it'll be a lot of fun, you guys. So we'll see you on Thursday. Don't forget, a week today is career mode with Paul, P Delta Bravo. It's going to be a lot of fun. The 16th, a week this Friday, the 16th, we'll be on the Microsoft official channel with Fly and Dive and the Paramotor, and we'll be highlighting the Paramotor and having a lot of fun on a group fly with Paramotor on the 16th on the Microsoft official channel with Jane and CDL. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So we got lots of stuff coming up and lots of news. So we'll see you on Thursday, guys. Have fun and get back in the air and fly and do the thing we love to do. So that's where it's at.
Night, everybody.
Thanks, Charlie. Thanks, Mike.
Hey, everybody.
Thanks, Andrew. And you guys, we'll see you guys soon. Take care, everyone.
Fly with Forder where the knowledge flows, through the winds of wisdom where the passion shows. He's the captain of kindness, the teacher we need, helping every simmer take off and succeed. He speaks in calm tone, steady, clear, breaking down the lessons, erasing the fear. From takeoff to landing, he covers it all. In his virtual cockpit, you'll never feel small. A community's heart, a mentor, a friend. He'll stick by your side till the lessons end.